killer at Jacon's estate. In the quiet wilderness of Texas, surrounded by dense woods and stretching fields, lay Jacon's estate, a vast, secluded mansion where wealth met silence and secrets grew like moss between the stones. The estate stood behind towering black iron gates, its gravel roads lined with oaks, its windows dark and watching. Dayton Briggs arrived at dusk, his truck kicking up dust as it rolled up the long drive. A tall, chiseled man in his late 20s, Dayton bore the presence of someone who had lived through battlefields and buried memories. His time as a Marine in war zones had left him hardened, not just in muscle but in the silence behind his blue eyes. He had no family, no roots, and nothing left to lose. When he took the job as estate manager, it wasn't ambition that brought him. It was the quiet promise of anonymity and a fresh start. The estate belonged to Christopher Jacon, a business magnate who had made his fortune through grit and willpower. He was a man of routines and power, who wore wealth like armor, always in crisp suits, expensive watches, and with a fleet of luxury cars and private jets at his disposal. Yet, beneath the sharp lines of his jaw was a man wearied by time and complicated ties. Christopher lived with his second wife, Martha, and his 3 daughters from his previous marriage. Martha was a vision of elegance, blonde, graceful, and poisonously spoiled. She carried herself like royalty, with a beauty sharpened by entitlement and years of manipulation. Her son, Robert, from her earlier marriage, had also moved into the estate. Young and decaying from within, Robert was a man consumed by drinking, gambling, womanizing, and failure. Covered in debts and bad habits, he drifted through the estate like a parasite, siphoning his stepfather's wealth while his mother turned a blind eye. Christopher's daughters were another story altogether. Tanya, the eldest, was the portrait of quiet confidence, brunette, intelligent, and resilient. She had her father's discipline and her own guarded fire. Then came the twins, Maya and Jolene. Maya, beautiful but fragile, carried a darkness inherited from her mother, Julia, a woman who had suffered violent psychotic breakdowns and had eventually been institutionalized. Her shadow clung to Maya like a second skin. Jolene, on the other hand, was sharp, fiery, and often simmering with resentment, especially toward Tanya and her stepmother. Where Tanya was composed, Jolene was reactionary, her emotions a storm just beneath the surface. From the moment he stepped foot on the estate, Dayton was met with curiosity, suspicion, and in some cases, silent admiration from all within the estates. The season brought new hope onto the estate. The daughters took notice, all 3 drawn in different ways to his strength and mystery. Where others kept their distance, Tanya, especially, watched him closely. She found herself drawn to his quiet resilience and honesty. Dayton quickly proved his worth through his diligence, efficiency, and hard work, traits Christopher greatly respected. While Dayton capably managed the estate, handling everything from equipment repairs to staff organization, Robert succumbed to a downward spiral of drinks and drugs. In time, Christopher began to trust him, often deferring minor decisions and commending his sense of order. Not everyone, however, was pleased. Martha's dislike for Dayton intensified daily. Perhaps she sensed a threat to her influence or resented his silent judgment. Robert, too, was quick to sneer, especially as his own failures stood in stark contrast to Dayton's work ethic. Furious with Dayton's growing popularity, he left Jacon's estate for good. Over time, Dayton and Tanya's connection deepened. It began with shared morning walks, responsibilities around the estate, shooting lessons, and long horse rides. Slowly, a profound bond bloomed between them. One built not on reckless passion, but on mutual respect and admiration. Tanya confided in him, sharing stories of her mother, Maya's fragile condition, and her own feelings of invisibility within her home. In turn, Dayton spoke of his unspoken stories from the battlefield. But Jolene always noticed. Her jealousy began to twist into quiet fury. One evening, Christopher called Dayton to his study. He was leaving for Mexico for a month on business. Martha would accompany him. He entrusted Dayton with full charge of the estate, the staff, the security, and most importantly, the safety of his daughters. Dayton proudly took on the responsibility. He finally had purpose again, not from harsh wartime commands, but from quietly protecting something meaningful. While Christopher and Martha were away, life on the estate grew lighter. Tanya and Dayton grew closer, their bond deepening under the humid summer skies and the quiet, lantern-lit nights. Mornings often found them in the kitchen, a comfortable rhythm established as they made fluffy pancakes, their fingers occasionally brushing as they reached for ingredients, a stolen kiss lingering in the sweet, sugary air. Their connection blossomed, a tender romance unfolding amidst the familiar surroundings of the estate. Even Maya began to trust him. One night, caught in a terrifying wave of panic, she collapsed into fits of screaming and scratching, losing grip on reality. Where Tanya struggled to calm her, Dayton stepped in, holding Maya gently but firmly, calming her through the turmoil. His presence grounded them both. But in the shadows, Jolene watched it all with growing jealousy and rage. When Christopher and Martha returned after a month, the estate's rhythm changed once again. The girls greeted their father with warmth. Christopher acknowledged Dayton with a brief, approving nod, but Martha's eyes were filled with cold calculation. Something in her had hardened further. Christopher seemed distant, spending long hours behind his office door. The servants whispered, and rumors swirled through the estate. Had Mr. Jacon's business suffered in Mexico? Were losses, failed deals, and debts looming like dark clouds? Martha, however, seized control where Christopher left silence. She made decisions openly, even welcoming Robert back into the estate. Her influence was clearly growing. And then, the fragile quiet of Jacon's estate shattered. A scream, though unheard, ripped through the silence as the first murder occurred. The gardener was found near the koi pond with a knife stabbed in his chest and eyes wide open to the sky. Next, the guard was found, wrestled and stabbed in his stomach while making his evening rounds. Then the cook, Nancy, found on the pantry floor, taking her last breath with a knife to her back. Fear spread like rot. The estate staff panicked. Some fled, others locked their doors, and Martha turned the panic toward Dayton. She sowed suspicion, claiming the murders began only after he arrived, that he was trained, capable, secretive, dangerous. Her words were venom, feeding the frightened minds around her. But that same night, her voice fell silent. Martha was found dead, her blood staining the parlor floor. A knife, its presence now grimly familiar, was plunged into her, a silent testament to the escalating horror at Jacon's estate. Dayton was taken for questioning, his room searched, his background was reviewed, but nothing was found. No blood, no weapon. He was released, but not forgiven by all. The tension within the estate festered. Tanya lost sleep, the quiet fear suffocating her. Maya's episodes intensified. Her distress echoed through the halls. Jolene grew more distant, unreadable, cold, storming off into the storm. Through the estate halls, Christopher walked in a haze of confusion and worry, clenching his cigar against his mounting distress. And drowning his sorrow on the sprawling estate lawns, Robert's grief began to curdle into anger. The storm intensified. It was there for Dayton tonight. He lay half asleep in the outhouse bedroom when a black shadow burst through his door. A knife flashed and a sharp pain tore through his shoulder. Blood instantly soaked his bare skin. Ignoring the searing agony and the gaping wound, Dayton rolled out of bed, already running, chasing the shadow. Through the darkness and rain, he gave chase, past the fields, across the open grounds toward the old barn. The attacker ran for their life. Dayton followed the shadow relentlessly through the lightning-flashed night. He lunged, tackling them to the ground amidst the storm rain and thunder. He pulled the shadow's black hoodie, only to be shocked by who it was. Dayton froze. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone he knew. Someone no one would have suspected. And in that moment, the truth became more terrifying than any lie whispered through the halls of Jacon's estate.